They denied my 3 days off to bury my dad. You'll need to choose between work and family, HR said coldly. I nodded, walked out, and that night I did something that cost them $5 million. My name is Sarah. I'm 32 years old, and until that moment, I'd been the perfect employee at Brennan Financial Services for 8 years. Never missed a deadline, never called in sick, never even took a full lunch break. I was that person who answered emails at midnight and volunteered for weekend shifts. You know the type, the one management loves to exploit while preaching about work-life balance. Before I continue, I want to thank you all for listening to my story. If you could take a quick second to hit that like button and drop a comment letting me know where you're listening from and what time it is there, it would mean the world to me. Your support keeps these stories coming. Thank you so much. The call about Dad came on a Tuesday morning. I was reviewing compliance reports when my phone buzzed. Mom's voice was barely a whisper. Heart attack. Instant. Gone. The words didn't make sense. Dad was only 58, still jogging every morning, still sending me dad jokes every Sunday. Our last conversation had been about his tomato garden. He was excited about some new variety he'd planted. Sarah Bear, he'd said, using my childhood nickname. These tomatoes are going to be prize winners. You'll see. I sat at my desk for 5 minutes, staring at the spreadsheet that suddenly looked like hieroglyphics. Then I walked to HR. Jennifer Martinez, our head of human resources, was eating a kale salad at her standing desk, one of those expensive, adjustable ones the executives got last year while they cut our parking benefits. I need 3 days off, I said. My father just passed away. The funeral is Thursday. She didn't even look up from her computer. Sarah, you know our bereavement policy. Immediate family gets 1 day, and that's only for local services. Where's the funeral? Ohio. My hometown. It's a 6-hour drive. Now she looked up, and I'll never forget that expression, like I was inconveniencing her lunch. That's unfortunate timing. We have the Stapleton audit next week. Your lead compliance officer on that. Jennifer, my father just died. She set down her fork with this theatrical sigh, like I was being dramatic. I understand this is emotional for you, but we need to think about the bigger picture. The Stapleton audit could mean millions in new contracts. You'll need to choose between work and family. I suggest you make the right choice for your career. The words hung there between us like a toxic cloud. 8 years of perfect attendance. 8 years of staying late, coming early, sacrificing weekends. 8 years of being told we were a family at Brennan Financial. But when my actual family needed me, suddenly I had to choose. Can I at least work remotely for those 3 days? I'll handle everything for the audit. Sarah, you know our remote work policy. It's only for approved circumstances, and personal matters don't qualify. If you leave, you'll be marked as absent without leave. 3 days of that is grounds for termination. Something cold settled in my chest. Not anger yet. That would come later. This was clarity, pure, crystalline clarity about exactly where I stood in this company's priorities. Below a audit, below their profit margins, below Jennifer's kale salad, probably. I understand, I said quietly. Good. I knew you were smart. Your father would want you to protect your career, wouldn't he? The fact that she invoked my dead father's wishes, a man she'd never met, who'd been gone less than an hour, that should have been my first clue that these people had no souls, but I just nodded and walked out. I went back to my desk and opened the Stapleton audit files. Everything was already prepared. I'd been working on it for 3 weeks, staying until 9 every night to make sure every detail was perfect, the kind of thorough preparation that had earned me 3 promotions and exactly 0 respect, apparently. My coworker Beth rolled her chair over. Sarah, honey, are you okay? You look pale. My dad died this morning. Her hand flew to her mouth. Oh my God, you're going home, right? No, can't. The audit. I watched her face cycle through confusion, shock, and then that look I'd see a lot over the next few days. The look of someone realizing they work for monsters, but being too afraid to say it out loud. She squeezed my shoulder and rolled back to her desk. That was Tuesday at Brennan Financial. Lots of sympathy, 0 action. That evening, I sat in my apartment, still in my work clothes, staring at 2 computer screens. On one was my resignation letter, half written. On the other was something much more interesting. A compliance report I'd filed 6 months ago that had mysteriously disappeared from the system. Good thing I kept copies of everything on my personal drive. Call it paranoia or call it foresight, but when you work in compliance, you learn to document everything. The report detailed several violations I discovered during a routine review. Nothing that would shut down a company, but enough to trigger hefty fines if the federal regulators knew. I'd submitted it to Jennifer and our CEO, Richard Brennan himself. They thanked me for my thoroughness and assured me they'd address the issues immediately. Except they hadn't. And now, staring at my father's obituary draft on my phone while these files glowed on my computer screen, I realized they never intended to. The next morning, Wednesday, I arrived at work at 7:30, same as always. The security guard, Marcus, gave me his usual nod.
"Morning, Miss Sarah. You're here early again."
"Always am, Marcus." He'd find out later why I was really there that early. Documenting every security camera blind spot, every archive access point, every digital footprint I'd need to navigate. But that morning, he just smiled and went back to his newspaper. The office was nearly empty, just me and the cleaning crew finishing their rounds. I liked Rosa, who cleaned our floor. She'd emigrated from Guatemala 20 years ago, put 3 kids through college on a cleaning lady's salary. We chatted sometimes in my broken Spanish and her broken English. That morning, she found me at my desk, already deep in files. "You okay, mija?" she asked, emptying my trash. "You look sad." "My father died yesterday, Rosa." She dropped the trash bag and pulled me into a hug that smelled like lemon cleaner and kindness. "Ay, Dios mío. You go home. Be with family." "Can't. They won't let me." The look she gave me could have melted steel. She muttered something in Spanish that I'm pretty sure wasn't a blessing for my employers, patted my cheek and moved on, but not before she whispered, "Sometimes, mija, the best revenge is success." I'd remember those words later. By 9, the office was filling up. The news about my father had spread through that mysterious office network that moves faster than email. People kept stopping by my desk with those sad, sympathetic faces, offering condolences, but carefully avoiding the obvious question. Why are you here? Only Tom from IT had the guts to ask it. Tom was 61, counting days until retirement, and had run out of dams to give somewhere around his 55th birthday.
"Sarah, why the hell are you here? Your dad just died."
Asked Jennifer in HR. His face darkened.
"She didn't."
"She did."
"That witch. Same thing happened to me when Patricia died, remember? They gave me 1 day for my wife of 38 years. 1 day.
His voice was bitter.
I should have quit then.
"Why didn't you?"
2 kids in college, mortgage, you know how it is.
He looked around, then leaned closer.
But my retirement's locked in now. 3 more months and I'm gone. If you need anything, and I mean anything, you let me know."
I filed that away for later. Tom from IT offering anything. That was interesting. At noon, Jennifer called an all-hands meeting in the main conference room. Quarterly earnings. Richard Brennan stood at the front in his $3,000 suit, all gleaming teeth and practiced sincerity, talking about our record-breaking quarter and our family values that made it possible.
"We're not just a company,"
he said, and I swear he looked right at me.
"We're a family, and families take care of each other."
The irony was so thick you could spread it on toast. Here's something funny, though. Well, funny in that cosmic joke way. Behind Richard was a huge screen showing our company values. Number 1, in 48-point font. We put people first. Number 2, work-life balance is sacred. I actually had to bite my tongue to keep from laughing, or screaming, possibly both. The presentation droned on. Profits up 30%. Executive bonuses approved. Meanwhile, they'd cut our health insurance benefits last month and eliminated the employee assistance program. But hey, Richard got a new boat. He showed us pictures. Named it Living the Dream. Beth texted me during the meeting. "This is insane. You should be in Ohio." I texted back. "I will be." "When?" "Tonight." She looked at me across the conference room, confused. I just smiled. Let her think I was breaking the rules. The truth was much more interesting. After the meeting, I went back to my desk and pulled up every compliance file from the last 5 years. As the lead compliance officer, I had access to everything, every report, every audit, every violation that had been swept under increasingly lumpy rugs. It was like opening a treasure chest of corporate malfeasance. There was the time they'd accidentally misreported earnings to inflate stock prices, the time they'd hidden a client complaint about discriminatory lending practices, the 3 separate instances of executive expense fraud that I'd flagged and been told to reassess with a more flexible interpretation of policy. But the best part, the absolute chef's kiss of irony, was a folder labeled HR Complaints, Resolved. Jennifer had given me access to it last year when she needed help with a particularly sensitive situation. She'd forgotten to revoke my access. Sloppy. Inside were dozens of complaints about denied leave, wrongful terminations, and discrimination, all marked Resolved. None actually resolved, including, and this made me actually gasp, 3 other employees who'd been denied bereavement leave in the last 2 years. One woman had missed her mother's funeral. Another man couldn't attend his brother's memorial. Each complaint closed with Jennifer's note. Employee chose to prioritize work. Matter resolved. I started making copies. Not on the company server. I wasn't that stupid. I had a thumb drive, one of those tiny ones that looks like a piece of jewelry. Tom from IT had given it to me last Christmas. For personal use, he'd said with a wink, completely untraceable if you know what you're doing. I knew what I was doing. By 5 o'clock, I had everything. 3 years of covered-up violations, enough to trigger a federal investigation, hefty fines, maybe even criminal charges for Richard and Jennifer. All sitting on a thumb drive shaped like a little silver heart. Dad would have appreciated the symbolism. I left the office at exactly 5:30, same as always. Said goodbye to Marcus, waved to a few coworkers. Everything normal, everything routine. Except for the thumb drive in my pocket and the resignation letter in my bag, still unsigned. The drive to Ohio took 7 hours, not 6. I hit construction and had to stop twice because I couldn't see through the tears. I made it to the funeral home by 1 in the morning. Mom was there, had been there all day, couldn't bear to leave him alone. She looked so small in that big Victorian chair, like she'd shrunk somehow without Dad beside her. "Sarah Bear," she said, using Dad's name for me. "You made it." Of course I made it. But your job. Mom, there are things more important than jobs. She held me while I cried, and I noticed she wasn't crying anymore. All cried out, I guess. There's only so much water in a person. Thursday morning was the viewing. Extended family I hadn't seen in years, Dad's bowling league, his veterans group, half the town seemed to show up. And through it all, I kept my phone on, laptop open, responding to emails about the Stapleton audit. Working from a funeral home. There's something deeply wrong with that sentence, isn't there? My Aunt Martha, Mom's sister, watched me typing during a lull between visitors. She was 73, sharp as a surgical scalpel, and had no filter left after surviving breast cancer twice. "What are you doing, honey?" "Working." They wouldn't give me time off. She stared at me for a long moment. "Your father's lying in a casket 10 feet away, and you're working? If I don't, I'll lose my job." "Then lose it." "It's not that simple, Aunt Martha." She snorted. "It's exactly that simple. You think your daddy would want you choosing some company over being here? You think he worked 40 years at the steel mill so his daughter could become a corporate slave? The steel mill gave him a week off when Grandpa died." "Exactly. And that was in 1985. We're supposed to be more civilized now, not less." She patted my hand. "Karma's real, sweetheart. These people will get theirs." If only she knew how right she was. The funeral itself was at 2 o'clock. Small Methodist church where my parents were married. Dad's flag from his Navy service draped over the casket. The pastor talked about dedication, integrity, service to others. Everything my father was. Everything my company pretended to be. During the service, my phone buzzed. Email from Jennifer. Subject line. Urgent. Stapleton audit question. I turned my phone off. For 1 hour, for my father's funeral, they could wait. After the cemetery, everyone gathered at Mom's house. Casseroles appeared from nowhere, the way they do in small towns. Aunt Martha held court in the living room, telling embarrassing stories about Dad from high school. His best friend, Big Jim, who wasn't big at all, one of those ironic nicknames that stick, pulled me aside. Your dad was proud of you, you know, always talking about his daughter, the big-shot financial officer in Charlotte. Compliance officer. Same difference to him. You were successful, honest, doing things the right way. That mattered to him. He paused. He ever tell you about the time he reported his supervisor for safety violations at the mill? No? Got him in hot water for a while. Supervisor was buddies with management, but your dad knew those violations could get someone killed, so he went over everyone's heads, straight to OSHA. Supervisor got fired, new safety protocols implemented, saved at least 3 lives that I know of. Big Jim smiled. Your dad always said doing the right thing isn't always the easy thing, but it's the only thing that lets you sleep at night. That night, going through Dad's papers for Mom, I found a letter he'd written but never sent. It was addressed to me, dated just a week ago. Sarah Bear, if you're reading this, something's happened to me, and your mother finally remembered where I keep the important papers. 3rd drawer down, honey, like I've told you 100 times. I want you to know how proud I am of you. Not because of your fancy job or your degrees, but because you've kept your integrity in a world that seems hell-bent on crushing it. But here's what worries me. I see you giving everything to that company, and what do they give back? You missed your cousin's wedding for them. You canceled 3 vacations. You're 32 years old, and I've watched the light in your eyes dim a little more each year. Your grandfather once told me that a job is what you do to live, not what you live to do. Don't forget that, sweetheart. No company is worth your soul. And no company that would ask for your soul is worth your time. Be brave, Sarah Bear. Be brave like I know you are. All my love, Dad. I sat in my childhood bedroom, surrounded by debate trophies and boy band posters, reading that letter over and over. Then I opened my laptop and got to work. Not on the Stapleton audit, on something much more important. I pulled up the federal whistleblower website, started filling out forms, attached document after document from my thumb drive. 5 years of violations, carefully cataloged, meticulously documented. Everything from minor regulatory infractions to major fraud. The submission process took 3 hours. By the time I finished, it was past midnight. I'd missed dinner, but Mom had saved me a plate. She found me at the kitchen table, laptop finally closed, eating cold fried chicken and potato salad. You okay, honey? I will be. You look different, less worried. I made a decision. She didn't ask what decision. Moms know when not to push. She just refilled my glass of sweet tea and sat with me while I ate. Friday morning, I drove back to Charlotte. 7 hours to think about what I'd done and what I still needed to do. The whistleblower complaint was filed, but these things take time. Months, sometimes years. I needed something more immediate. Something that would hit them where it really hurt, their reputation and their wallet. If you're enjoying this story and want to hear more stories like this, please take just a moment to subscribe to my channel and hit that like button. Your support truly means everything to me, and it helps me continue sharing these important stories. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. I got back to Charlotte by 3 and went straight to the office. Jennifer was at her desk, probably expecting me to apologize, to grovel, to beg for my job back. Sarah, I wasn't expecting you until Monday. The funeral was yesterday. I'm back now. Her face did this fascinating gymnastics routine. Surprise, annoyance, fake sympathy, and finally settling on condescension. Well, I'm glad you made the right choice. The audit is Monday after all. Of course. The audit. I went to my desk. Everything exactly as I'd left it, except for a new pile of work that had somehow materialized in my absence. A sticky note from Jennifer. Please complete ASAP. Thanks for being a team player. Team player, right. I wondered what team she thought we were on. Tom from IT stopped by within 5 minutes. Sarah, Jesus, you actually came back? Had to. The audit, remember? He studied my face. You're up to something. Tom, I'm hurt. Would I be up to something? God, I hope so. He lowered his voice. Remember what I said about needing anything? Actually, yes. I need to understand our email backup system. For the audit, how far back do the archives go? His eyes lit up with understanding. 7 years. Everything. Even the stuff people think they deleted. Even the stuff from private servers that sync with company phones. Interesting. And who has access to those archives? Officially, just senior IT and legal. Unofficially, anyone with admin credentials who knows where to look. And you could show someone where to look, hypothetically? Hypothetically, I could do a lot of things, especially if I was, say, training someone on compliance protocols for data retention. Very thorough training. Might take all weekend. We shook hands like we were sealing a normal business deal. Nothing about it was normal. That weekend was revelatory. Tom wasn't just willing to help, he was eager. Turned out Jennifer had denied him bereavement leave when his wife died. One day for 38 years of marriage. He'd been documenting things ever since, waiting for his moment. My situation had given him the opportunity. We found emails that would make your hair curl. Richard discussing with Jennifer how to manage out older employees before they qualified for full pensions. Jennifer joking about denying maternity leave extensions because they chose to have babies. Richard explicitly instructing the accounting team to misrepresent earnings for the quarterly report. But the crown jewel was an email chain from 2 years ago. A former employee, Derek Washington, had filed a racial discrimination complaint. Instead of investigating, Richard and Jennifer had orchestrated his termination for performance issues. Their emails about it were, well, let's just say they were explicit about their real motivations. And stupid enough to put it in writing. This is a gold mine, Tom said, copying everything to multiple drives. Or a minefield, depending on your perspective. Why didn't you do anything with this before? No protection. Whistleblower laws are great if you can prove retaliation, but I had 2 kids in college and a sick wife. Couldn't risk it, but now? He grinned. 3 months to retirement, fully vested, untouchable. Sunday night, I prepared everything for the Stapleton audit. Every document, every report, every detail perfect. I also prepared something else, a comprehensive package of evidence that I overnighted to 3 different law firms that specialized in employment law and qui tam cases. If you don't know what qui tam is, it's basically when you can sue on behalf of the government for fraud and get a percentage of what they recover. Very lucrative for lawyers, very expensive for companies. Monday morning came fast. The Stapleton audit team arrived at 9 sharp. 3 auditors in identical navy suits, armed with laptops and skepticism. I presented everything flawlessly. 8 years of experience distilled into 3 hours of perfect performance. They were impressed. Jennifer was glowing. Richard actually patted me on the shoulder. Excellent work, Sarah. I knew we could count on you to put the company first. Always, Richard. The company first. He didn't catch the irony. They never do. The audit went perfectly. We passed with flying colors. The team lead even complimented our compliance protocols, which was hilarious considering how many we were violating. But I'd hidden those violations well, compartmentalized them away from this particular audit. I was good at my job, too good for these people. That afternoon, Jennifer called me into her office. Sarah, I want to thank you for your dedication. I know last week was difficult with your personal situation, but you showed real professional maturity. Personal situation. That's what my father's death had become, a personal situation. Thank you, Jennifer. Richard and I were discussing, and we'd like to offer you a promotion. Senior Director of Compliance, 20% raise, stock options, the works. Any other day, I would have been thrilled. It was everything I'd worked for, but now? Now it felt like 30 pieces of silver. Can I have some time to consider? She looked surprised. Of course, but don't take too long. We need someone strong in that role, especially with the expansion we're planning. Expansion, that was interesting. I made a mental note to check what kind of expansion they were planning with all those hidden liabilities on the books. Tuesday morning, I accepted the promotion. Jennifer was thrilled. Richard sent a company-wide email announcing my new position, praising my dedication and calling me the kind of employee who exemplifies Brennan financial values. The irony was delicious. I was about to exemplify their values in ways they never imagined. That same afternoon, the first domino fell. The law firm of Hendricks, Wyatt, and Chin called Richard directly. They represented Derek Washington and 6 other former employees in the class action discrimination lawsuit. The evidence was overwhelming, they said. The emails particularly damning. Would Brennan Financial like to discuss settlement? I know this because Richard's assistant Paula told me. Paula was another ally I'd cultivated over the years. 60 years old, treated like furniture by the executives, and absolutely fed up with it. She kept me informed of every panicked meeting, every hushed phone call. He went white as a sheet, she told me over coffee. Actually had to sit down. Jennifer's been in his office for 2 hours. Wednesday brought domino number 2, a letter from the Department of Labor. Random audit, they said, completely routine. Except random audits aren't usually scheduled for the following Monday, and they don't usually specifically request 5 years of compliance records, all of which I'd already prepared and organized. What a coincidence. Thursday was my favorite. That's when the Charlotte Business Journal called, asking for comment on the allegations of systematic discrimination and fraud at Brennan Financial. Someone had leaked the lawsuit filing and the Department of Labor audit and the selection of particularly juicy emails. I have no idea who would do such a thing. Tom from IT was whistling when he passed my office. He'd been whistling a lot lately. Sounded like, "We're in the money." Subtle, Tom. Real subtle. By Thursday afternoon, our stock had dropped 12%. Richard called an emergency all-hands meeting.
I want to address the baseless allegations being spread about our company.
He started, sweating through his expensive shirt.
We have always operated with the highest ethical standards.
Someone in the back actually laughed. Richard's face went from red to purple.
We will defend ourselves vigorously against these lies, and if I find out anyone from this company has been spreading these rumors, they will face immediate termination and legal action.
After the meeting, Jennifer pulled me aside. Sarah, as Senior Director of Compliance, I need you to conduct an internal audit. Find out if there's any truth to these allegations. Of course, I'll need full access to all records, including executive emails and HR files. She hesitated. Is that really necessary? If you want a thorough investigation that will stand up to federal scrutiny, yes. She gave me access. Sometimes arrogance makes people incredibly stupid. I spent Thursday night and Friday documenting everything, not secretly this time, officially. As Senior Director of Compliance, I had not just the right, but the obligation to investigate. Every violation I found went into an official report, every cover-up meticulously documented, every piece of evidence properly cataloged and cross-referenced. My report was 300 pages long. It detailed systematic discrimination in hiring and promotions, securities fraud totaling approximately $2.3 million, OSHA violations that put employees at risk, wage theft through misclassified overtime, fraudulent reporting to federal regulators, deliberate destruction of evidence. The estimated fines and settlements came to approximately $5 million, conservatively. Friday evening, Tom stopped by my office.
Monday's going to be interesting.
Why's that?
Oh, you know, federal auditors, lawsuit news probably hitting national outlets, and someone might have accidentally sent your compliance report to every member of the board of directors.
Tom, that's terrible. How could such an accident happen?
No idea. Probably the same way someone accidentally copied all those emails to a secure off-site server before the company tries to delete them this weekend. We grinned at each other like kids who just pulled off the perfect prank, except this prank was about to cost some very bad people a lot of money. Saturday, I got a call from Jennifer. Sarah, we need you to come in immediately. I'm afraid I can't. I'm in Ohio for my father's memorial service. I wasn't. I was sitting in my apartment in my pajamas, eating cereal and watching Netflix, but she didn't need to know that. This is an emergency. So was my father's death. I'll see you Monday. I hung up. It felt amazing. Sunday was quiet, the calm before the storm. I spent it with Mom, who'd driven down to Charlotte. We went through Dad's things, donated his clothes to charity, kept his watch and his Navy pins. She didn't ask about my job situation. She knew something was happening, knew I was in the middle of it, and trusted me to handle it. Your father would be proud, she said over dinner. You don't even know what I'm doing. I know you're doing the right thing. That's all I need to know.
Monday morning arrived like Christmas, my birthday, and the 4th of July, all rolled into one. I dressed carefully, my best suit, the one I'd bought with my first bonus. If I was going to watch my company burn, I was going to look professional doing it. The federal auditors were already there when I arrived at 7:30, 6 of them, setting up in our main conference room. Jennifer was there too, looking like she hadn't slept in days. Good. Sarah, thank God you're here. These auditors are asking for documents I don't even know exist. Don't worry, Jennifer. I have everything prepared. Her relief was palpable. You do? Oh yes, everything. I handed the lead auditor, a stern woman named Margaret Chen, a USB drive and a printed copy of my 300-page report. This contains a comprehensive analysis of all compliance violations from the past 5 years, with supporting documentation. Jennifer's face went through several fascinating color changes. Sarah, what are you doing? My job. You asked me to conduct an internal audit. I did. But you're supposed to be on our side. I'm on the side of the law, Jennifer. That's what compliance officers do. Margaret Chen was already scrolling through the report, her eyebrows climbing higher with each page. Ms. Martinez. Ms. Thompson here seems to have done our job for us. This is extraordinarily thorough. Thank you. I believe in being thorough. By 10 o'clock, the Charlotte Business Journal had updated their story. Brennan Financial Insider reveals extensive fraud. By noon, it was on CNBC. The stock dropped another 23%. Richard called me to his office at 1. He wasn't alone. Jennifer was there, along with our entire legal team. You're fired, he said without preamble. On what grounds? Sabotage, corporate espionage, theft of proprietary information. I laughed, actually laughed. Richard, I'm a whistleblower protected under federal law. I've already filed with the SEC, the Department of Labor, and the EEC. Firing me now would be retaliation. You fire me, and I own this company. The head of legal, an ancient man named Bartholomew, whispered urgently in Richard's ear. You can't prove you're a whistleblower, Richard tried. I pulled out my phone, showed them the confirmation numbers from my federal filings, all dated the day of my father's funeral. I can, actually, and there's more. Derek Washington's lawsuit? I'm a witness. The discrimination, the retaliation, the cover-ups, I documented all of it. Fire me, and I become a very motivated witness. What do you want? Jennifer asked, her voice small. Nothing. I want absolutely nothing from you people. I'm going to do my job as Senior Director of Compliance, assist with the federal audit, and ensure every violation is properly reported. Then, when this is over, I'll resign with a full severance package and glowing references. Or you can fire me now and I'll own your houses by Christmas. Bartholomew whispered again. Richard's face looked like he was sucking on a lemon soaked in vinegar. Fine. I stood to leave, then turned back. Oh, and Jennifer, that promotion you gave me? Thank you. The 20% raise will be nice, even if it's only for a few weeks. The next few days were a blur. Federal auditors crawling through everything, reporters calling constantly, employees coming forward with their own stories of discrimination and retaliation. The dam had broken, and the flood was magnificent. Tom from IT retired early on Wednesday. Sudden health concerns, he said officially. Best day of my life, he told me privately. Thanks for the motivation, kid. Thursday brought the best news. Jennifer was terminated. Not resigned, not retired, terminated for cause. No severance, no references, no golden parachute. Just gone. Security escorted her out with a cardboard box of personal items. I watched from my office window. She was crying. I felt nothing. No, that's not true. I felt justice. Richard tried to hang on, tried to blame everything on Jennifer and a few bad actors. But the board had seen my report. They knew he was neck-deep in everything. Friday afternoon,
He announced his resignation to pursue other opportunities. Those opportunities presumably included finding a good criminal defense attorney. The final tally, when all was said and done: SEC fines $2.8 million, Department of Labor penalties $1.2 million, class action settlement $1.3 million, legal fees and remediation costs at least $700,000. Total over $6 million, not counting the stock price collapse that wiped out tens of millions in market cap.
The weeks that followed were surreal. The board appointed an interim CEO, a woman named Patricia Nguyen, who actually knew what integrity meant. Her first act was to implement a new bereavement policy, 2 weeks paid leave for immediate family, no questions asked. She called it the Thompson Protocol after me. I cried when I heard that. Dad would have loved it. I stayed on for 6 weeks to help with the transition, to work with the federal investigators to train my replacement. Patricia tried to convince me to stay permanently. We need people like you, Sarah, people with integrity. I appreciate that, but I can't. This place has too many ghosts for me. She understood. She also made sure my severance package was generous enough to make me comfortable for a good long while. Derek Washington's lawsuit settled for an undisclosed amount, but his lawyer called to thank me personally.
Your documentation made our case airtight. We couldn't have done it without you.
Just doing my job.
No, he said. You did the right thing. That's much harder.
My Aunt Martha called when she saw the news.
I told you karma was real, sweetheart. Your daddy's probably up there laughing his butt off.
She was right. Dad would have loved this. David versus Goliath. And David won, with a compliance report and the thumb drive. I started getting calls from other companies offering positions with impressive salaries and titles. Senior Vice President of Ethics, Chief Compliance Officer, Executive Director of Corporate Integrity. But I wasn't ready. Not yet. Instead, I did something unexpected. I started a consulting firm, Thompson Integrity Associates. My first client was a small manufacturing company whose owner had read about the Brennan Financial scandal and wanted to make sure his company was doing things right.
I don't want to end up in the news like those idiots,
he said bluntly.
Help me be better.
I could do that. Beth from my old office was one of my first hires. She'd quit Brennan the day after Jennifer was fired. I can't work for people like that anymore, she'd said. Got anything for a reformed corporate drone? We also hired Marcus, the security guard, as our office manager. Turns out he had a business degree, but could never get past the entry-level interviews. Systemic discrimination at its finest. He was brilliant at operations, had just never been given the chance to prove it. Rosa, the cleaning lady, I hired as our community liaison for our pro bono work with immigrant-owned businesses. Her connections in that community were invaluable, and her instinct for people's character was flawless. You're building something good here, Mija, she told me. Something honest. 6 months after Dad's funeral, we had 12 employees and more clients than we could handle. Companies wanted what we offered, honest, thorough compliance audits that would keep them out of trouble. We weren't cheap, but we were worth it. The universe has a sense of humor, though. 8 months after the scandal, I got a call from Patricia Nguyen. Sarah, I have an unusual request. Brennan Financial needs a complete compliance overhaul. Would you consider taking us on as a client? The irony was so thick I could barely breathe. You want me to consult for the company that wouldn't give me 3 days off for my father's funeral? I want you to help us make sure that never happens again. Name your price. I named a price that should have made her hang up. She didn't. When can you start? 1 year to the day after my father's death, I walked back into Brennan Financial, not as an employee, but as the CEO of my own company, hired to rebuild their entire compliance and ethics program from the ground up. The building looked the same, but everything else had changed. Richard's presidential portrait in the lobby had been replaced with a mission statement about integrity. Jennifer's office was now a wellness room for employees. The executive floor had been converted to an open workspace. No more ivory tower. Patricia met me at reception herself. Thank you for doing this, Sarah. I know it can't be easy coming back here. It's not about easy. It's about making sure what happened to me doesn't happen to anyone else. My team and I spent 3 months at Brennan. We rewrote every policy, retrained every manager, and installed systems that would make cover-ups impossible.
We instituted anonymous reporting mechanisms, independent ethics reviews, and mandatory training on discrimination and retaliation. The bereavement policy was particularly important to me. 2 weeks paid leave, no questions asked, with an additional week available if needed. We also added care leave for employees dealing with sick family members, elder care support, and mental health days that didn't count against sick leave.
During one training session, a young analyst raised her hand. This seems like it cost the company a lot of money. It does, I replied. But you know what costs more? Lawsuits, federal fines, lost reputation, good employees leaving, bad employees staying. Trust me, treating people with dignity is always the better investment. The investigation into Richard and Jennifer continued. Richard eventually pled guilty to securities fraud and got 18 months in federal prison, plus massive fines. Jennifer wasn't criminally charged, but was permanently barred from working in HR by the Department of Labor. Last I heard, she was selling real estate in Florida. Karma indeed. Tom from IT sent me postcards from his retirement travels. Machu Picchu, the Great Wall, the Northern Lights. Each one signed the same way. Living the dream. Thanks for the push. T. But the best moment came when we unveiled the new employee memorial garden at Brennan Financial. Patricia had asked me to design something to honor employees who had passed. I created a beautiful space with a fountain and benches, places for people to grieve and remember. The dedication plaque read, "In memory of those who taught us that people matter more than profits." I was thinking of Dad when I wrote that. At the dedication ceremony, Patricia asked me to speak. I stood in front of 200 Brennan employees, many of whom remembered me from before. A year ago, this company told me I had to choose between work and family. They were wrong. That's a false choice, created by people who've forgotten that companies are made of humans, not machines. Every person here has a life outside these walls. Parents who get sick, children who need them, partners who deserve their time, lives that matter. I paused, looked at the memorial garden. My father died believing in doing the right thing, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. This company failed that test once. The $6 million price tag was just money. The real cost was in broken trust, destroyed lives, and missed moments that can never be recovered. But here's what I learned. When you stand up for what's right, you find out you're not alone. There are Toms and Beths and Roses everywhere, waiting for someone to go first. Waiting for someone to say, "This isn't okay." So here's my challenge to you. Don't wait. If something's wrong, say it. If someone's being mistreated, stand up. If you're asked to choose between your integrity and your job, remember, a job that requires you to sacrifice your integrity isn't worth having. The applause was genuine, not the polite corporate kind. Several people were crying. Marcus, now my chief operations officer, gave me a subtle thumbs up from the back. After the ceremony, a young woman approached me. "Ms. Thompson? I'm Emily. I work in accounting. Last month, my grandmother died, and they gave me the full 2 weeks off, no questions asked. I just wanted to say thank you. I know that's because of you. It's because a lot of people stood up for what's right. Maybe. But you stood up first." That night, I visited Dad's grave. Mom had planted those tomatoes he'd been so excited about around his headstone. They were magnificent, just like he'd predicted. "Hey, Dad," I said to the stone. "Remember when you said no company was worth my soul? You were right. But you know what? Sometimes fighting for your soul is exactly what saves it." I told him about the company, about the garden, about the new policies, about how his death had sparked changes that would protect thousands of employees for years to come. "You always said doing the right thing was the only thing that let you sleep at night. Well, I'm sleeping pretty well these days." A breeze rustled through the tomato plants, and for just a moment, I could swear I heard his laugh. My company, Thompson Integrity Associates, now has offices in 3 cities. We've helped dozens of companies build ethical cultures and prevented countless situations like mine. We've recovered millions in stolen wages, exposed discrimination, and protected whistleblowers. But more importantly, we've changed the conversation. Companies hire us not after scandals, but to prevent them. They've learned that treating employees with dignity isn't just morally right, it's good business. Richard's old boat, Living the Dream, was sold at federal auction to pay his fines. The new owner renamed it Integrity.
I know because he hired us to audit his company, and he told me the story. He thought it was poetic justice. So did I. Jennifer sent me a letter once, asking for forgiveness. I didn't respond. Forgiveness is earned through changed behavior, not requested through letters. Besides, I was too busy helping other companies avoid becoming the next Brennan Financial.
The truth is, they did me a favor by showing me their true colors so starkly. If they'd given me those 3 days off, I'd probably still be there, working 60-hour weeks, missing my life, thinking that was normal. Their cruelty freed me to become who I was meant to be. So here's the thing about choosing between work and family. It's not really a choice at all. Any job that forces you to make that choice has already told you everything you need to know about it. The real choice is whether you'll accept it or fight back. I chose to fight, and it cost them $5 million. But what I gained was priceless. Self-respect, a company built on integrity, and the knowledge that when I stood at my father's grave, I could tell him I'd chosen family. I'd chosen what mattered. I'd chosen him. And somewhere, in whatever comes after this life, I know he's proud.